The galaxy was quiet, too quiet. Trade routes bustled, as usual. Political debates raged in council halls, and alien markets overflowed with colors, smells, and voices. But underneath that everyday life, there was a strange tension that no one could explain. It was the kind of silence predators make before they strike, the pause before the storm hits. And in that silence, single truth had been forgotten. Humans had not been truly angry for over 200 years. Most young species in the galaxy didn't even remember Earth's name. Humanity had been quiet for so long that people assumed they were harmless, just another species that had faded into obscurity after their wars and struggles centuries ago. The Council of Civilized Worlds taught in schools that humans were peaceful archivists now, more interested in studying history than writing it. But history itself had erased something important: what humans were capable of when pushed too far. On the edge of the Orion Arm, deep in the quiet black between suns, a lone listening station hung in the void. It was run by 3 members of the Zarin race, a reptilian species known for their patience. They thought they were monitoring empty space for smuggler ships or stray meteor activity. But that night, the station received a signal no one had heard in centuries, a human transmission. It was short, broken, faded with static. But the words that made it through sent a shiver through the cold air of the control room. "We are coming." The Zarin officer in charge, Commander Zale, frowned. "Coming from where?" "For what?" he muttered. Humans hadn't left their small corner of the galaxy in generations. Yet here was a message, and the voice in it wasn't calm. It carried the kind of anger that could melt steel. The transmission ended abruptly, replaced by a steady pulse, like a heartbeat going through their cums. Zale didn't know it yet, but that pulse was a warning, a countdown. Somewhere far away, something had been awakened. News of the strange signal spread fast among intelligence circles. Most dismissed it. Few of the older ones remembered the last time humanity had been provoked: the siege of Arcadia Prime, when humans had fought 3 entire coalitions at once and left nothing but dust behind. But those were old war stories told to scare cadets. Surely humans weren't like that anymore, right? The younger species laughed. The council did nothing. The press ignored it. But in the shadows, there were whispers. Some species quietly began moving ships away from human space. Others sent out scouts to investigate. And in the darkness of the Perseus Veil, human fleets began to move. On Earth, the skies over the old military shipyards were alive again. Massive steel hulls rose from dry docks that had been dormant for decades. Engines the size of cities roared to life. Crews worked without rest. Every human colony, every outpost, every orbital station received the same 2 words as the listening post had: "We're coming." The cause of this sudden movement was still unknown, but somewhere far out in deep space, one species knew exactly what they had done, and they were terrified. It had started as a joke, pushing humans around, taking resources from one of their colonies, thinking they wouldn't fight back. After all, humans were soft now, right? The Archean Union, a proud and arrogant insectoid empire, had made that mistake. They had no idea that they had lit the last match in a room full of fuel. As the hours passed, more strange reports began to surface. Merchant ships claimed to see massive human warships crossing lanes without broadcasting IDs. A mining station vanished without a distress signal. Only a scorched asteroid remained. One smuggler swore they saw a fleet with black, unmarked hulls, moving in absolute silence, their weapons charged. And then, without warning, an entire Archean patrol vanished at the edge of the Vega corridor. No wreckage, no survivors. Only an open channel, repeating the same human voice. The silence is over. The galaxy didn't know it yet, but the storm had already begun. The last time humanity had gotten angry, they'd changed the balance of power for 100 years. This time, they weren't just angry, they were done being quiet, somewhere out in the cold dark. Commander Zale sat staring at the transmission, his claws tapping nervously against the console. He didn't understand humans, but he understood war. And for the first time in his long career, he pitied the species who had made this mistake. because history might have forgotten what humans could do. But the galaxy was about to remember. The Council of Civilized Worlds met under the great crystal dome of the central spire. Representatives of 100 species sat in tiered rings, their voices echoing in a low, constant hum. Holographic charts of trade routes and military patrols floated in the air. At the center of the chamber, the High Chancellor of the Council raised her voice to calm the room. "The rumors of human activity are exaggerated," she said, her tone steady, almost bored. "There is no evidence they pose a threat." But in the back rows, Ambassador Thallon of the Drazier race shifted uncomfortably in his seat. He was old enough to remember the old wars, the kind of wars fought before peace treaties and trade alliances. His people had fought beside humans once, centuries ago. He remembered their strange, stubborn way of fighting, how they would rather burn the ground they stood on than let an enemy take it. And the reports he'd been reading for the past week felt too familiar. One by one, more reports poured in. A convoy belonging to the Arkan Union had been ambushed in deep space. No cargo was recovered. No bodies were found. The only clue was a single black feather, floating inside the wreckage of one ship-in-old human military symbol for revenge. Still, the Council argued. Some laughed off the stories, saying they were pirate attacks or mechanical failures. Others whispered that humans had built weapons in secret. The Chancellor dismissed the meeting, saying there were more important matters to handle. Outside the safety of the spire, fear had already begun to spread. On the icy mining colony of Rigus IV, workers spotted strange shapes in the sky. At first they thought it was debris falling from orbit. Then the shapes moved fast. Massive ships, with black holes and no running lights, descended silently. They didn't fire. They didn't broadcast a signal. They simply hovered over the colony for hours, as if marking it. And then, as suddenly as they appeared, they were gone. Back on Earth, the reason for humanity's sudden awakening was becoming clear. 2 months earlier, an Arkan raiding party had attacked a small human research outpost on the colony world of Delphine. The Arkan claimed it was an accident. Territorial misunderstanding. But in truth, they had slaughtered every man, woman, and child there. The humans had sent a formal demand for justice. The Arkan laughed. That was their mistake. In the underground command centers of Earth, the mood had changed overnight. The human fleets, long kept in reserve, were activated. The Black Horizon Protocol, a war plan so old that even most human generals thought it was a myth, was given the green light. It was not a plan for negotiation. It was not a plan for defense. It was a plan for eradication. The first strike came. Without warning, an Arkan supply depot near the Tarvos Rift went completely dark. Satellite images showed only a burning crater where the station had been. A nearby communications buoy picked up a transmission moments before the destruction, human voices chanting something over and over in an ancient Earth language no alien could translate. Panic spread in Arkan space. They sent fleets to patrol every border, but it was like chasing shadows. Human warships moved like ghosts, hitting and vanishing before alarms could even sound. No one knew how they navigated so deep into enemy territory without being detected. But the worst blow wasn't physical, it was psychological. Humans weren't just destroying military targets, they were watching. Entire Arkan cities reported strange incidents. Empty streets where surveillance drones caught glimpses of human soldiers before the footage cut to static. Anonymous messages left on government networks saying, "We remember Delphine," and holograms of the lost colonists projected on the sides of buildings in the dead of night. Back in the council chambers, the mood shifted from arrogance to concern. The younger species, who had never faced war, began to realize the truth. They weren't dealing with the peaceful humans of the history books. They were dealing with something much older, much colder, and far more dangerous. Ambassador Thallon, now certain of what was coming, tried to warn the assembly. "You do not understand," he said, his voice cutting through the noise. "Humans do not fight to win. They fight so their enemy cannot rise again. And once they start, they will not stop until the galaxy itself forces them to." But the Council was too divided to act. Far away in the blackness between stars, a single human flagship hung in silence. Its name was Vengeance, an old battleship refitted for war. On its bridge stood Admiral Isaac Hale, his eyes fixed on a holographic map of Arkran territory. Round him, officers moved like shadows, their faces calm but their hands quick. "The Council won't intervene," a commander reported. "They won't have to," Hale replied, his voice cold. "By the time they notice, it will be over." And in that moment, the final spark was struck. The war was no longer a possibility, was inevitable. The first human fleet crossed the edge of the Visari territory without a single warning shot. They moved like shadows, no lights, no radio signals, just silent shapes gliding through the cold void. To anyone watching from afar, it might have looked like nothing more than pieces of space debris drifting aimlessly. But the Visari knew better. Their sensors screamed with silent alarms. Something was out there, something big. In the Visari High Command Chamber, Admiral Corrin stood frozen, in disbelief. "Why? Why can't we detect their power cores?" he asked. The answer came in a whisper from the intelligence officer beside him, because their officer. The room fell silent. The Visari had fought dozens of alien civilizations before. No one dared cross their borders without massive displays of firepower. But this was different. Humans weren't charging in with glowing engines and loud threats. They had turned everything off. No energy signatures, no communication. Just the silent, patient approach of predators who didn't need to roar. Before killing, on the far side of the galaxy, in the human flagship, Vigilant. Captain Maraday watched the Visari sensor grid flicker with confusion. She didn't smile. She didn't need to. Her crew knew the plan. Every move had been prepared months ago. This wasn't war as the Visari knew it. This was a message. A warning. It's the kind that wouldn't need to be spoken twice. Then, without warning, it began. The first Visari outpost didn't explode. It simply vanished. Lights went out, power cut, all communications severed. The massive station drifted into darkness, its crew screaming into dead cums as shadows slipped through the corridors. No human face was ever seen. No weapon was fired. In public view, yet hours later, the station's systems rebooted, and every Visari soldier inside was gone. Not dead, just gone. The Visari fleet panicked. They launched every available warship, but the humans never gave them a target. Ships disappeared in the black. Entire convoys went silent mid-transmission. Even the Visari civilians felt its cities. Going dark for days, whispers of unseen figures walking their streets at night, rumors spread faster than orders. Some Visari swore they heard faint human voices in the dark, speaking words they didn't understand. Others claimed their dreams were haunted by the sound of heavy boots marching closer and closer. The High Council told them it was all lies. But deep down, they knew this was not a normal war. This was the humans. Angry, and angry humans didn't fight for territory. They fought for something far more dangerous: memory. The kind of memory that made sure no one would ever forget what happened, or who caused it. The Visari were used to fighting enemies face to face. Their warriors thrived on battle cries, blade clashes, and the heat of close combat. But nothing in their history prepared them for the moment they finally saw the humans. It happened during a desperate rescue mission. A Visari warship, the Iron Talon, was sent to retrieve survivors from a crippled supply freighter. The freighter had gone silent hours earlier, its last transmission filled with static and a faint, chilling tapping sound. When the Iron Talon arrived, the freighter was floating dead in space. No lights, no movement, no sign of damage from the outside. The boarding crew entered cautiously, their armor scanning every shadow. The air was cold, too cold. Breath misted inside their helmets. There was no sound except the low hum of their own life support systems. Then one of them whispered, "Movement." On the upper deck, they advanced slowly, their boots echoing against the steel floors. As they turned a corner, the emergency lights flickered on for just 1 second. That was all it took. Standing at the far end of the hallway was a human. Not just any human. This one was clad in a matte black exosuit, its surface absorbing the dim light like a living shadow. No insignia, no glowing visor. Just the dark, faceless. Mask tilted slightly, as if studying them. The Visari soldiers froze. Their scanners still read nothing. No heat, no power, no life signs. Yet the human was right there, watching. Then it moved. It didn't run. It didn't fire. It simply stepped forward, silent and deliberate. The Vesari opened fire in panic, but their shots passed through the empty space where it had been. Human was gone. The crew scrambled, shouting over comes. But their voices were drowned out by a low, metallic knock 3 slow, beats echoing through the freighter. Every Visari soldier knew what it meant, a hunter marking its prey. When they finally made it to the control room, the survivors they came to rescue were nowhere to be found. In their place was a single object, an old Earth coin, scratched and worn, resting in the captain's chair. Back on the Iron Talon, the recovered helmet footage was shown to the Visari High Council. They watched in silence. When the image of the faceless human appeared, a chill ran through the chamber. Someone whispered the words that would spread fear across the Empire. They're not coming for our planets. They're coming for us. The Visari Empire thought they could contain the humans by retreating to their fortified core worlds. They shut down trade lanes, deployed their largest fleets, and sealed every wormhole entry point they knew of. But humans didn't follow the rules of war that the Vesari understood. They didn't send fleets. They didn't announce their attacks. They appeared. One by one, Vesari colonies stopped responding to calls. Patrols vanished without distress signals. Tire cities on distant moons were found, abandoned meals still on tables, machinery still running, but every living being gone. It was as if people had been plucked out of existence. The Visari Council demanded answers. Their scientists searched for patterns. Their generals demanded counterattacks. But then, signal came through. Not on their secure channels. Not through any known frequency. It just arrived. The transmission was only 20 seconds long. The screen showed the same faceless human, figure seen on the Iron Talon. Behind them, blurred shapes moved in the shadows, other humans watching. A voice spoke, calm, steady, not mechanical, but human. Visari Empire, you took, you burned, you thought we would forget. We don't forget, and we don't forgive. You made this personal. Now it's our turn. Then the feed cut, but not before a final image flashed, an ancient Visari war memorial, centuries old, now defaced with a single human word scratched into the stone. Ours. Fear spread faster than any weapon. In Visari culture, war was a matter of honor and territory. But the humans didn't want land. They didn't want tribute. They wanted every single Visari responsible. The Visari were beginning to realize that responsible might mean all of them. From that moment on, no Visari slept without wondering if they'd wake to find a human standing in the dark, silent and waiting. It started without warning. Visari capital ships massive. War behemoths that had once ruled the galaxy found. Their engines offline, their shields dead, their weapons useless. On every Visari world, the skies turned black. It's not from clouds, but from the silent. Dark silhouettes of human vessels. These were not the clumsy ships the Visari remembered from their first contact with Earth. These were something else entirely, shapes that shifted in the darkness, holes that seemed to drink in the light, weapons that didn't glow or roar, but simply ended things. There were no speeches this time, no demands, no broadcasts. The humans moved with terrifying precision. Cities were erased in moments, leaving nothing but glassed ground. Fleets disappeared without debris, as if swallowed by the void. Command centers found themselves breached before they even knew there was an attack. Some Visari tried to flee into the deep reaches of uncharted space. None were ever heard from again. And then, just as quickly as it began, it stopped. The galaxy waited for the humans to continue their rampage, to take territory, to plant flags. But the humans didn't stay. They didn't rebuild what they had destroyed. They simply left. The Visari homeworld was gone. Not bombed, not abandoned, gone. Like a missing star on a chart. No one ever found it again. Every record of its location had been erased from every database. as if history itself had been rewritten. Those who had once feared the Visari found something even more terrifying, forgetting them entirely.
Oh!
Within a generation, no one in the galaxy could even describe what the Visari had looked like. The name faded from memory. The empire that once dominated the stars became nothing more than an empty space in the archives. But deep in the human archives locked, away in a vault no outsider would ever open, there was a single file labeled Visari. It contained one sentence: the last species to make us angry. History never saw them again.